Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at CoreWeave. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have been tracking this idea of a 1-2 setup ever since we actually started covering this stock, and it was around this time frame when we were for the first time actually going here into the area of support for the wave 2 between the $97 level all the way down to the $48 level, where as long as we hold here technically this area of support, we have high probabilities for a reversal to the upside in a wave 3. And we were considering here along the way a potential bottom here initially for the wave 2. Yeah, we had an ABC structure we were tracking, then we had another low. We were still considering a potential bottom and tracking a potential larger 5-wave move to the upside to be forming. But ever since we have formed this initial push to the upside, and we failed to continue within this impulsive trend, and we pushed back here down into a larger area of support. We had broken the area of support that would have allowed us to track an impulse to the upside. We actually became skeptical of this movement to the upside being a part of a larger wave 3. And I actually even remember having one of the viewers demand that I change the count that we were tracking, that I focus on the breakout in a wave 3. And yeah, sure, we were considering that option, but it wasn't a high likelihood. We were watching here for the relevant resistance levels. We had a potential 1-2 setup to be forming. We had even a potential larger AB movement to be forming after we have managed to break the relevant resistance levels for the 1-2 setup. And yeah, that was honestly for good reasons. We had a very choppy structure, very unreliable, and it was highly suggestive that this structure is at a very significant risk of breaking once again deep into the area of support. And surely enough, we didn't manage to break here the resistance levels for the wave B, and we have formed the pattern expected within this structure to the downside. Yeah, right now we actually have a full wave C in this count, and we pushed perfectly into the 61.8% retracement. Now, this is not to say that this correction is over. In fact, yeah, we still have a lot of down pressure still forming within this movement. We haven't broken any relevant areas of resistance that would suggest that this structure to the downside is actually done, and we will get to those in a moment. But yeah, within this area, we right now have a couple of options. So in the previous video, we were actually tracking let me see. Yeah, now we see it. We were actually tracking here a potential bottom within a larger ABC movement in the white scenario that would have been basically a wave Y to the downside. So we were already looking for the potential larger structure to begin to the upside. The correction was substantial enough, and we didn't really need any additional lows to consider this correction possibly complete. But we had here this area of support that extended down to the $76 level that would have allowed here a fifth wave to be forming, and surely enough we did initially push into it and extend higher, but really this was not the wave 4. This was an extension within the wave 3. Yeah, clearly we would have wanted to be able to track a larger correction within the wave 4, one that would have been more substantial in terms of the proportions to be similar with the wave 2. And yeah, basically we formed here in this area an ABC movement to the upside, and honestly, even if we wanted to track this as a 5-wave move to the upside, we would have still had a relevant area of support that would have allowed an extension all the way down to only the $70 level before considering that this is likely going to fail and form a new low. And yeah, clearly we have broken even this and pushed lower. Now, in this case, we kind of even need to actually remove this interpretation in white and focus in one of the two possible interpretations in this yellow scenario. So technically this could work out as a 1, 2, 3, and this would be the relevant area of resistance for such levels. I would still need to see here a break above this $109 level for a signal that this structure is done. Yeah, probably even more now with this additional low. But I might actually prefer to be tracking something like a 1-2 setup within this area. It would still be a diagonal structure to the downside within the wave C. I would still be looking for an ABC structure to be formed within the fifth wave to the downside. But yeah, basically the area of resistance would be shifted down a little. And in the end, it wouldn't change much. I would still be tracking here a wave 4. It would have been the same structure that we were tracking to the upside, and I would still expect the same pattern to unfold here within the fifth wave to the downside. It's just in terms of proportion, now with this movement complete, it is probably preferred that this pattern should be tracked, in my opinion. And honestly, it's not something we haven't considered in the previous video either, but right now it doesn't matter. We have formed here, we have extended lower, and now we are tracking this fifth wave to the downside, and we want to be able to tell what type of patterns we should really expect. So we have already formed a lower low. Yeah, we have broken below the beginning of the wave, or the end, sorry, of the wave 3, and we have pushed into the larger area, the larger level of support, the 61.8% retracement, before having the most significant reaction to the upside ever since this top that has formed already. Yeah, basically this push into the 38.2% retracement. And in that case, I am open to consider a couple of options. So I could see this as an A wave down. I could see this as an A wave that would still be expected to extend. And we could allow even an impulse to be forming, although the resistance levels would be quite restricted in an impulse. It would need to turn back down very, very soon without pushing too high. And within a diagonal structure, yeah, this movement, this initial pattern to the downside could still extend. If we are, however, to form a more significant bottom, yeah, honestly, we could already be done. We shouldn't necessarily focus too much on the microstructure because this is a very choppy area. Yeah, we don't necessarily have an impulsive structure, a clearly determined 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th that could be forming within this area. We have very many interpretations open at hand, and what I have been focusing within this area is, firstly, within the idea of an impulse extending lower, I would allow here a potential 1, 2 setup, and then a third wave down complete, a fourth wave up, and then a fifth wave that could still be unfolding. For this interpretation, I am allowing this wave 4 correction to go into the $69.4 level. Then honestly, even this wave 3 actually might still be able to extend. In that case, we could shift it ever so slightly lower, and we would have basically already touched the 50% retracement. Yeah, almost, I suppose. But in the end, yeah, I'm allowing even the 40 cents above for the 50% retracement to be tracked for this interpretation in a possible impulse to the downside. Yeah. In this case, yeah, sure, we could extend a little bit higher, but I would expect to not see a sustained break above the 50% retracement. And then, in the idea of a larger diagonal structure, I could consider this as a wave 1, a wave 2 up here, a third wave down complete, and now I would be looking for a fourth wave to the upside where we have the resistance levels between the $68.9 all the way up to the $78 level at the 61.8% retracement. And honestly, even within this interpretation, we have already touched the area of resistance actually quite perfectly before getting rejected, and already a couple of times. And we would need to determine, if we head directly lower, what type of pattern really this is, the red or the orange, based on the internal structure within the fifth wave to the downside. And yeah, even then, it might be quite difficult, but yeah, it is a difficult area. I'm not denying that. It is not an easy setup to track internally. It is not an easy pattern to track within such a small time frame within this area, within this movement. And then ultimately, I honestly cannot allow to have too bullish of an outlook until we break the possibility of a larger A wave being complete, within a 3-wave structure. As we have here in red, 1, 2, 3, it would be an ABC, and then an ABC movement could still work out and would still allow us to extend lower, even if we break here above the 61.8% retracement. And for that, yeah, we would need to allow the full 78.6% retracement of the entire pattern. That would be the $84.4 level, but honestly, this is not something to focus on, not while we still are able to build a 5-wave move to the downside, not until or as long as we have 2 other bearish interpretations to still look out for. This is not something we should focus on too much. But yeah, the main idea is right now we are actually still focusing on additional extensions lower. This 5th wave is still too short for the yellow interpretation to consider a likely bottom in place, even though the structure could be technically complete. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.